This quote, it just hits you, doesn't it? It comes from the immediate aftermath of the disaster we're about to walk through. It's a statement so stark, it captures a level of devastation that's almost impossible to even wrap your head around. On March 11th, 2011, what started as a totally normal Friday in Japan, well, it spiraled into a multi-layered catastrophe. It was a terrifying 1-2-3 punch. First the ground shaking, then a wall of water, and finally a silent, invisible threat that put not just a nation, but the whole world on edge. So let's break down how this tragedy unfolded, one catastrophic event at a time. Everything, and I mean everything, began with the ground itself. A seismic event of almost unimaginable power. A mega-thrust earthquake that had been building up pressure for centuries, just waiting to unleash its fury. You know, the crazy thing is, this disaster didn't just come out of the blue. There were warnings. As you can see here, 2 days before the main event, a series of pretty powerful foreshocks rattled the region. They were strong, for sure, but not unheard of in Japan. No one could have known that this was just the Earth's first whisper, right before the roar. And then, the roar. 2:46 p.m. on March 11th, a magnitude 9.1. Just let that number sink in for a second. This wasn't just another earthquake. This was one of the most powerful ever recorded in all of human history. A true superquake that no technology on Earth could have predicted or stopped. The impact was, and I mean this literally, planetary. The shaking was so violent it actually caused our entire planet to wobble on its axis. It physically shifted the main island of Japan almost 8 feet to the east, and it went on for 6 minutes. Can you even imagine that? 6 endless minutes where the very ground beneath your feet is betraying you. So when the shaking finally subsided, and people emerged into this world of smoke and rubble, you could imagine the sense of relief. Modern buildings had mostly held up. They thought, okay, we survived. The worst is over. But they had no idea. Far out in the Pacific, the real disaster was just beginning to wake up. That violent rupture of the seafloor displaced a truly colossal amount of water. All of that energy had to go somewhere. And so now we move from the terror of the quake to the absolute horror of the wave. Now here's where things went from bad to truly catastrophic. It was a massive underestimation. The initial warnings, they predicted waves around 20 feet high. But the reality, it wasn't even in the same ballpark. In some places, the water surged to an unthinkable 131 feet. The protective seawalls, built to stop the worst disasters imaginable, were completely overwhelmed. They were rendered totally useless by an event that just defied all expectations. So a tsunami isn't just one big wave. It's a series of them, racing across the open ocean at the speed of a jetliner. We're talking nearly 500 miles an hour. As it gets closer to the shallower coastline, all of that incredible speed transforms into terrifying height. This wasn't a wave. It was a moving wall of water with unimaginable force. In the coastal towns, the tsunami hit with just biblical force. And it wasn't just water. It was this churning, grinding mass of debris, cars, boats, shipping containers, entire buildings that just crushed everything like it was made of tin. Amidst all of this chaos, there were these moments of just incredible bravery. At the Noru school, a teacher named David Shum risked his own life, pulling his students from that raging water. His heroism is just incredible, but it also stands in stark contrast to the tragic outcome at his school, where 74 children and staff still lost their lives. The tsunami's power didn't just stop at Japan's shores. It radiated across the entire Pacific. I mean, look at this chart. Waves reached 12 feet in Hawaii. It caused millions of dollars of damage to harbors all the way over in California. And get this, the wave's energy traveled for 18 hours to reach Antarctica, where it was still powerful enough to break off a huge chunk of an ice shelf. Unbelievable. But just as the world was grappling with the devastation of the quake and the tsunami, a third, and in some ways even more insidious crisis was unfolding. A silent, man-made disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The failure at the plant was a devastating cascade, a domino effect from hell. First, the earthquake cuts the main power. The emergency generators kick in, just like they're supposed to. But then the tsunami hits, a 49-foot wave that just easily crashes over the 19-foot seawall. It floods the basements, destroying those generators. And just like that, the plant was plunged into darkness. With no power, there was no way to cool the intensely hot reactor cores. The countdown to meltdown had begun. What happened next was a terrifying race against time. The pressure and the heat just built up uncontrollably. Hydrogen gas, a byproduct of the overheating, sparked a series of massive explosions. They ripped apart the reactor buildings, sending huge plumes of radioactive material bleeding into the atmosphere. The situation was spiraling completely, catastrophically out of control. As most people were being evacuated, a small group of workers, who we now know as the Fukushima 50, refused to leave. These were just ordinary engineers and technicians who stayed behind, facing near-certain lethal doses of radiation. They were driven by this profound sense of duty to prevent a catastrophe that could have been far, far worse. So, a quake, a tsunami, and a nuclear meltdown. 3 distinct disasters, all converging on one horrible day. The long-term consequences are staggering, and they're still being felt right now, to this day. Behind every single statistic is a story of profound personal loss. A man named Neo Kimura lost his father, his wife, and his 7-year-old daughter Yuna to the waves. For more than a decade, he searched for her remains. This unimaginable grief was repeated thousands and thousands of times over. The final tally is just staggering. More than 18,000 people dead or missing, over 100,000 displaced from their homes. The financial cost hit $235 billion, making it the most expensive natural disaster in history. And the environmental legacy? Well, that includes more than 10,000 tons of contaminated water just from the Fukushima plant alone. This triple disaster was just a brutal reminder of a power that shows absolutely no mercy. Japan had prepared for earthquakes and tsunamis. They built seawalls, they had nuclear protocols, but on March 11, 2011, nature presented a scenario that went way beyond their worst nightmares. And it leaves us with this critical and frankly chilling question: how do we possibly prepare for the unimaginable?